The train hissed as it pulled away from the platform, taking Barrett, Jesse, Biggs, Wedge, and Cloud with it. Tifa Lockhart stood on the edge of the station, watching the shadows of her teammates vanish into the dark tunnels of the sector railway system. And then they were gone. She felt it again, that quiet, aching tension, a cocktail of guilt and helplessness. It was the same feeling she got every time Avalanche went on a mission. They were risking their lives for something they believed in, and she was just waiting, but not doing nothing. Back in Seventh Heaven, she locked the front door, dropped the blinds, and pulled up the floor hatch behind her, revealing the hidden access to Avalanche's secret base. The bar might have been a cover, but what lay beneath it was the real beating heart of their movement. Earlier that morning, when the sun barely pierced the smog over Sector 7, Tifa found herself awake before everyone else, standing behind the bar with her fingers wrapped around a warm mug of instant coffee. She hadn't slept much, not because of nerves, but because he was back. Cloud. After 5 years. After Nibelheim. After everything. She hadn't been sure it was really him when she first saw him walk into the bar the night before. The blonde hair was the same, spiked as always, and the sword strapped to his back looked absurdly large, but there was a coldness in his eyes she didn't recognize. He spoke with the detached confidence of a man who has seen too much, too fast. But still, it was him. She could feel in the pit of her stomach the strange relief of a thread from the past being pulled back into her grasp. And now, standing barefoot on the wooden floorboards of her bar, Tifa mentally rehearsed everything that would happen today. It wasn't just about Avalanche's mission to blow up Mako Reactor 1. It was about proving to herself that she could pull this team together, including him. Downstairs, she heard Barrett's familiar stomp as he entered. He was grumbling already, something about the heat and the train being late. She poured another mug of instant coffee and gave him a look that told him, not now. He respected her. Everyone in Avalanche did, even if his temper sometimes forgot that fact. And as they sat there at the bar, Tifa finally brought it up. Barrett, about Cloud. He raised an eyebrow. The ex-soldier? Don't like it. Shinra dogs don't change their spots. Tifa didn't flinch. She'd expected that. I know him, she said simply. He's not like the others. Barrett grumbled again, but she could see the gears turning in his head. Tifa had vouched for Cloud, and that meant something. In a group fueled by trust and desperation, her word carried weight. The rest of the morning passed in fragments, gathering supplies, double-checking escape routes, hiding weapons beneath the floorboards. Tifa kept herself busy until Cloud finally arrived. In that moment, she remembered a promise they made under the stars when they were just kids. If anything ever happened, he'd come protect her. That's what he said. Had he remembered that? The rest of the team was already assembled, and Barrett gave him a skeptical once-over and said a few condescending things in order to show his dominance, but Tifa stepped in between them, her voice calm but firm. He's here to help us, Barrett, to make sure none of you die out there today. Yeah, well, at least it'll be nice to see what the soldier boy's made of. When they boarded the train to the reactor, Tifa watched him out of the corner of her eye, trying to decipher the man he'd become. And when he finally looked at her, like really looked at her, there was the faintest trace of warmth behind the soldier mask. That look burned in her mind as she thought about the possible outcomes of this mission, and the things that could go wrong. She couldn't help but feel a knot tighten in her chest, not because it was the first reactor they've ever hit, that was dangerous enough, but because Cloud was with them. As quickly as he'd come back into her life, he could just as quickly not come back at all. And yet, she asked him to come. Did she want him there to help the mission? To protect Barrett and the team? Or was there something more? He was good in a fight, sure, but he was a mercenary, detached, efficient. She had no idea if he even remembered what they meant to each other, or if he even cared about anything anymore. She thought back to the conversation they had earlier that morning. Why are you doing this? He asked, his eyes cold, voice distant. Because I believe Shinra's hurting the planet, she said, and I don't want to stand by and do nothing. Cloud said nothing, but when Barrett finished his rallying speech and asked the merc, You coming? Cloud nodded. He hadn't done it for the planet, not for Avalanche, maybe not even for the money. Tifa wanted to believe it was for her. Back at the hidden base, even if she wasn't with them, she still had an important job to do. She was the fallback, the liaison, the lookout. If something went wrong, if Shinra caught wind of the plan, Tifa was the only one positioned to intercept communications, to coordinate the team's return, or to initiate contingency plans. There was no glamour in it, no explosions or heroics, just quiet vigilance to make sure that this time no one would die. Sitting at the radio console, she put on the headset and began cycling through the team's encrypted channels. Marlene was there with her. They did it together, like it was a game. Team 1 status check? No response yet. They'd just entered Sector 1. She leaned back, eyes scanning the flickering status board. A few minutes passed, then static broke into Barrett's gravelly voice. Planting charges. Jesse's working on the timer. Tell Tifa we're on schedule. Tifa exhaled softly. So far, so good. Meanwhile, the morning air in the Sector 5 slums was heavy, touched by the metallic tang of Mako exhaust and the ever-present hum of the city's underbelly. But inside the old church where Aerith Gainsborough tended to her flower garden, the world felt softer. Aerith woke just before dawn, as she always did. She liked visiting her flowers as the sun was rising, while the trace amounts of dew in the air had them smelling their freshest. The dim light filtered through the broken stained-glass windows, casting shards of rose and gold across the pews. She closed her eyes and took a big, deep breath. The scent of soil and wild blossoms greeted her. Her garden, miraculously blooming in the ruined floor of the church, was already stirring with life. Pale yellow lilies, wild cosmos, and her favorite, small white and pink blooms no one else seemed to recognize, reached toward the filtered sunlight like they knew something the rest of the world didn't. She moved among them carefully, humming a tune passed down from her mother, brushing her fingers gently over the petals. She watered them with what she had, collected rainwater and leftover tea, and whispered encouragements like she believed they could hear her. Maybe they could. By mid-morning, she was outside, weaving flowers into little bundles, ready to sell in the upper sectors. It was her way of contributing, helping her mother, Elmira, and keeping their small world afloat. Today, something felt different, though. There was a flutter in her chest she couldn't quite explain. She paused, holding a half-made bouquet in her hands, and a small breeze ruffled her pink dress. "Something's going to happen today," she murmured. Then she laughed. "Maybe I'll actually sell more than 3 flowers." The path from Sector 5 to the train station near Sector 8 was long and winding, but Aerith didn't mind. She passed through familiar alleyways, past old pipes and broken vending machines, greeting neighbors, nodding to shopkeepers who barely looked up. She carried her woven basket gently, the flowers cradled like secrets. She reached the streets above just as the first signs of trouble began. A thunderous boom echoed across the steel sky. People looked up, confused. Sirens blared in the distance, the telltale sound of a Shinra alert. Aerith paused, her heart skipping. And then it happened. Flames burst in the distance. A Mako Reactor, they said. An explosion. Avalanche, someone whispered. Aerith didn't know them. Not yet. But the moment when the fire lit the sky marked the beginning of everything. She stayed calm, weaving through the crowd near Loveless Street in Sector 8. People were panicking. Security was on the move. She turned a corner, tucking herself into a quieter alleyway, deciding to wait for the chaos to die down. And then she saw him. A spiky-haired man with a massive sword strapped to his back, walking like he didn't belong to the world around him. There was something in his eyes, distance, maybe pain. She watched him for a moment, curiosity blooming faster than any flower she'd ever grown. As if sensing her gaze, he turned, and their eyes met. "You should probably get out of here," he said. Aerith smiled, pulling a single flower from her basket. It was small, fragile, and perfect. "Here," she said softly, stepping into the light. "A flower for you." The man blinked, caught off guard. "A flower?" "It's rare, you know," she said with a hint of playful mischief. "They only grow in special places." How much?" he asked. "1 gil," she said with a giggle. He took it, hesitant but gentle. Cloud looked down at the flower. He thought of someone he could give it to. Then he looked back at the flower girl. Something unspoken passed between them. He couldn't quite identify it. Fate? Destiny? Maybe just possibility. Next thing he knew, she'd run off, fleeing amongst the debris and the rubble. He remembered he had somewhere to be as well. And 2 hours later, when the team returned to Seventh Heaven, bruised, coughing, and covered in grime, Tifa met them at the hidden door behind the bar. She scanned their faces. Jesse's gear was scorched, Biggs was limping, Wedge had blood on his sleeve, and Barrett, enthusiastic as ever, especially to see Marlene. And Cloud looked untouched, silent, eyes distant, but he was back and alive. Tifa let herself smile. Not relief exactly, but something else. Maybe something hopeful? "So," she said lightly, "first mission a success?" Cloud just looked at her. "We did it," he said quietly. And in his voice she heard something new. Not warmth exactly, but not indifference either. Maybe the first crack in the wall. Maybe the start of something deeper. Then she noticed something stuck in his uniform. "What's that? A flower? Well, that's rare. It's like a little miracle." He handed it to her. "A guy can change. It has been 5 years." A Flower Before the Storm. Produced and narrated by Taylor McMahon.